After loudly backing Tehran, is a NATO ally now daring to draw a red line against Washington itself? As Iran-US firestorm threatens to ignite, is Turkey quietly shifting onto a war footing on the front line? Ankara trashes talk of sealing out refugees, and hints at a far bolder move instead. Turkey cools on American weapons and pivots toward a different NATO powerhouse for its next arsenal. Turkey is quietly reviewing a menu of potential actions it might take if full-scale war erupts between the United States and Iran, according to emerging reports. A senior Turkish official told Reuters on February 25 that Ankara is considering all scenarios on the table as it wargames for the worst. The source stressed that Turkey's primary focus is on options to safeguard its own citizens if the crisis spins out of control. As a NATO member that shares a long frontier with Iran, Ankara has loudly opposed any US military intervention on Iranian soil and warned against destabilizing the region. However, the official declined to spell out what specific measures are being prepared, leaving the true scope of Turkey's contingency planning deliberately murky. Diplomats say Ankara has been in touch with both Washington and Tehran, urging de-escalation and pushing for diplomacy over strikes. The Turkish source underlined that any move violating Iran's sovereignty is firmly off the table, drawing a clear red line against cross-border intervention. Ankara has also slapped down reports that it might send forces into Iran to block a potential refugee influx, dismissing such claims as disinformation. With US officials openly discussing possible strikes on Iran, Turkey is trying to cast itself as a regional stabiliser preparing for negative scenarios while still betting on diplomacy. Earlier in February, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said Turkey is ready to mediate between Tehran and Washington in a bid to cool the crisis. Erdogan has repeatedly criticized Washington's maximum pressure sanctions regime on Iran, arguing it has only deepened tensions and punished ordinary people. At the same time, Ankara appears to be edging away from relying on US weapons, seeking alternative suppliers as strategic trust with Washington phrase. Turkey is now turning to Britain's Eurofighter Typhoon instead of America's F-35, sourcing its next frontline jets from the UK rather than the US, according to defense reports. Ankara has sealed an £8 billion agreement with London to acquire 20 brand new Tranche 4 Typhoon fighters, a landmark deal highlighted by Defence Security Asia. On top of that, Turkey is negotiating to buy 24 second-hand Typhoons from Qatar and Oman to quickly bulk up its air fleet, reports say. Turkish officials describe the Typhoon purchase as a stopgap bridge solution that will cover the gap until the homegrown Kan fighter officially joins frontline service. Crucially, Turkey is pressing ahead with its indigenous fifth-generation Kan jet program as a long-term alternative to the US-built F-35. This pivot toward the UK, Qatar, and Oman comes after Ankara was ejected from the F-35 program in 2019, cutting it out of America's flagship stealth fighter club. Washington's move to remove Turkey followed Ankara's decision to buy Russia's S-400 air defense system, a purchase that triggered US sanctions and political backlash. By locking in the Eurofighter deal with Britain, Turkey preserves its high-end NATO combat aviation links without having to depend directly on Washington. At the same time, the shift underscores how strained US-Turkish defense ties have become, even as Washington stares down rising tensions with Tehran.